Why do you give up on everything around day 17? It's always the same pattern. Day 1, clarity. Week 1, momentum. Week 2, friction. And somewhere between day 14 and 21, the whole system collapses. Not because you lack discipline, not because you chose the wrong goal, but because you never understood what consistency actually is. Most people think consistency is about repetition. Do the thing every day until it becomes automatic. Neuroscience supports this, right? 21 days to form a habit. 66 days for true automation. The numbers make it sound scientific, predictable, mechanical. But if that were true, why does everyone fail at exactly the same point? You've experienced this. The workout routine that died on day 19. The meditation practice that vanished after 2 weeks. The language learning app you opened religiously until you didn't. Same timeline, same collapse, and every time you blamed yourself for lacking willpower. Here's what no one tells you. The collapse isn't personal failure, it's architectural. Your entire approach to consistency is built on a foundation that was designed to crumble. And today you'll discover the ancient Japanese system that reveals why your consistency dies, and how to build the kind of continuity that doesn't rely on motivation, discipline, or any other resource that depletes. But before I show you this complete system, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment, what's the exact day or week number when your last streak broke? The story I'm about to tell you happened to Christopher. He was a high school English teacher, 31, living in Portland. Good job, stable income, respected by students. But he had one problem that was eating him from the inside. He couldn't maintain anything for longer than 2 weeks. Exercise routines, 16 days maximum. Reading habit, collapsed after 12 days. Journaling practice, 19 days before he forgot. Even small things like drinking enough water or going to bed at a consistent time. Same pattern. 2 weeks of success, then sudden obliteration. Christopher wasn't lazy. He'd wake up at 5:30 a.m., plan his day meticulously, set reminders, track his habits on apps with gamification and streak counters. He read all the books: Atomic Habits, The Power of Habit, Tiny Habits. He understood trigger action reward loops. He knew about implementation intentions and environment design. None of it worked past day 17. What made it worse was that he could see other teachers maintaining their routines. Sarah ran every morning for 3 years straight. Michael had meditated daily for a decade. Even his younger colleague, fresh out of college, managed to stick with a reading habit that Christopher himself had failed to maintain 5 separate times. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in March, day 18 of his morning writing practice. He'd set everything up perfectly. Journal on his desk, coffee ready, alarm at 5 a.m. to give himself quiet time before the school day. The alarm rang, his hand reached out, and instead of getting up, he thought, just one day off won't hurt. By Thursday, the practice was dead. That evening, sitting in his empty classroom after the students left, Christopher realized something that terrified him. It wasn't just habits he couldn't maintain, it was identity. Every time he built momentum toward becoming someone, a writer, an athlete, a disciplined person, that identity would dissolve right around the 2-week mark, as if there were an invisible ceiling preventing him from actually transforming. He'd spent years thinking the problem was method, better system, better tracking, better rewards. But the methods weren't the issue. Something deeper was killing his consistency, something he couldn't see. That's when he discovered Mushin. Not from a book, not from a productivity guru. From an old documentary about Japanese archery that YouTube recommended at 11 p.m. when he couldn't sleep. The master archer described a state called Mushin, no mind, where the archer doesn't think about shooting. The shot happens through him, not by him. Christopher almost closed the video. It sounded like mystical nonsense. But then the master said something that made him pause. The beginner relies on intention. The master relies on non-existence of intention. When you think about drawing the bow, you have already created separation. The moment you must remind yourself to practice, the practice is artificial. Real continuity doesn't require memory. Christopher rewound and watched again. Real continuity doesn't require memory. Every habit system he'd tried was built on memory. Reminders, trackers, streaks. External scaffolding to force him to remember to do the thing, which meant every single day required the same effort as day one. No wonder it collapsed. He'd been sprinting a marathon. The next morning, he didn't set an alarm for writing. He didn't open his habit tracker. He sat at his desk at 5 a.m. and wrote one sentence. Not because he was trying to build a habit, but because he decided in that moment that he was someone who wrote in the morning. The difference felt microscopic, but it wasn't. Day 3 arrived. Normally, this is where the novelty starts fading. Christopher noticed his mind offering the first negotiation. You could sleep in just today. But instead of fighting the thought or using willpower to override it, he simply observed it. The thought existed, and then his body moved to the desk anyway. Not because he forced it, because the identity had already been established. The negotiation was irrelevant. Mushin, he was learning, wasn't about eliminating thought. It was about eliminating the gap between thought and action. Most people experience that gap as a battleground. Should I? Shouldn't I? What if I'm too tired? What if I don't feel like it? Every question creates drag. Every negotiation burns energy. And by week 2, you've spent so much energy negotiating with yourself that the entire practice collapses from exhaustion. Christopher stopped negotiating. Day 7, the first weekend. Historically, this is where his routines died. Weekends disrupted the structure. No work schedule to anchor against. Sleeping in felt justified. I'll restart Monday became the mantra, but Monday never came. This time Christopher woke up at 5 a.m. on Saturday. Not because he set an alarm, because his identity didn't recognize the concept of weekends. A writer writes, "The day of the week is irrelevant data." He wrote for 12 minutes. Terrible, scattered thoughts. Didn't matter. The practice wasn't about output. It was about existence. He existed as someone who wrote. The quality of the writing was a separate variable. By day 12, something strange started happening. Other teachers noticed. "You seem different," Sarah said in the staff room. Calmer. Christopher didn't feel calmer. He felt the same. But what he didn't realize yet was that Mushin doesn't announce itself. It's invisible to the person practicing it. You don't feel like you're in a flow state. You just stop feeling friction. Day 14 arrived, the danger zone. Historically, this is where the collapse began, where motivation evaporated and discipline became a burden, and the whole structure started creaking. Christopher waited for the collapse. It didn't come. Not because he'd built an unbreakable habit, but because there was nothing to break. He wasn't maintaining a streak. He wasn't protecting a chain. He was simply continuing to exist as the person he'd already decided to be. But here's what the books don't tell you. Mushin doesn't eliminate doubt, it just relocates it. Day 19. Christopher sat at his desk and wrote, but for the first time, a different thought appeared. Is this even working? I'm still the same person. Nothing's changed. This is the second collapse point, not the behavioral collapse, but the existential one. You maintain the action, but you start questioning whether the action has meaning, whether you're just going through motions, whether real transformation is even happening. Most people quit here, not because they can't do the thing, but because the thing starts feeling empty. Christopher almost quit, but then he remembered something else from that documentary. The master archer had said, "The target is not the point, the shot is not the point. The point is the elimination of separation between archer and bow. When that happens, hitting the target becomes inevitable. But if you practice to hit the target, you will always miss." Christopher had been waiting for evidence, waiting for the writing to produce something, a finished essay, a breakthrough idea, proof that the practice mattered. But the practice itself was the point. The elimination of separation between himself and the action. He wasn't building toward becoming a writer. He was already a writer. The only question was whether he would continue to exist as one. He kept writing. Day 23. Monday morning. His colleague Michael walked into the classroom early and saw Christopher at his desk, notebook open. "You're here early." "I'm always here early," Christopher said. Michael looked at him strangely. "Yeah, I guess you are." That's when Christopher understood the real mechanism of Mushin. It wasn't about building a habit so strong that you couldn't break it. It was about becoming someone for whom the habit isn't a habit at all. It's just continuation, like breathing. You don't maintain a breathing streak. You don't track your breath count, you just breathe. And if someone asked you how you stay consistent with breathing, you'd look at them confused. That's Mushin. The practice becomes so integrated into your existence that the concept of maintaining it becomes absurd. But the system had one more test. Day 31. Christopher's father had a heart attack. Not fatal, but serious. Christopher drove 4 hours to the hospital, stayed overnight in the waiting room, slept 2 hours in a chair, and drove back the next morning to teach. The writing practice should have died. Any reasonable person would skip. Emergency situation. Legitimate excuse, no one would judge. 5 a.m. hospital cafeteria. Fluorescent lights. Vending machine humming in the corner. Christopher pulled out his notebook and wrote. Not because he was obsessed. Not because he feared breaking the streak. But because the identity didn't have an off switch. A writer writes, "The location is irrelevant. The circumstances are irrelevant. The practice exists independent of conditions." 3 weeks later, his father recovered. Christopher returned to normal life. And the writing continued. 60 days, 90 days, 120 days. But here's what happened that nobody prepared him for. His friends started pulling away. Not dramatically, just distance. Invitations stopped coming. Weekend plans evaporated. When he did see them, conversations felt strained. One friend finally said it out loud. "You've changed, man. You're always busy now, always working on something. It's like you don't have time for us anymore." Christopher didn't know how to explain that he wasn't busier, he just didn't negotiate anymore. When they texted at 10 p.m. asking to grab drinks, he was already asleep. When they planned spontaneous weekend trips, he still woke at 5 a.m. and wrote. It wasn't rejection. It was just incompatibility. His existence operated on a different frequency now, and people who live by negotiation, by mood, by circumstance, they can't understand people who don't. The cost of Mushin isn't what you gain, it's who you lose access to. Not because you're superior, but because you've removed yourself from the shared reality of perpetual intention. You don't relate to trying to be consistent anymore. You just are. Most people never cross that threshold because the cost looks too high. Losing spontaneity, losing social flexibility, losing the comfort of blaming circumstances when things don't work out. But Christopher discovered something on the other side of that cost. Freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever he wanted, the freedom from needing to decide. Every morning at 5 a.m., his mind was quiet. No negotiation, no willpower expenditure, no decision fatigue. The action simply occurred, and his day began from a place of completion rather than deficit. 6 months in, one of his students asked him a question after class. "Mr. Harrison, how do you stay so consistent with everything? I can't even finish my homework on time." Christopher thought about it. How do you explain Mushin to a 16-year-old? "I don't stay consistent," he said. "I just don't stop." The student looked confused. "Isn't that the same thing?" "No. Consistency is something you maintain. Stopping is something you choose. I just stopped choosing to stop." The student walked away, still confused. But Christopher knew the answer would only make sense once you'd crossed the threshold yourself. Mushin can't be explained. It can only be experienced. And the experience doesn't feel like mastery, it feels like disappearance. By month 9, Christopher had written 127,000 words, not because he was talented, not because he was disciplined, but because he'd eliminated the separation between himself and the practice. There was no Christopher who decided to write. There was just writing happening through the vehicle of his existence. Other routines started integrating the same way. Exercise stopped being a decision. Reading stopped requiring intention. Sleep schedule stopped needing enforcement, not because he'd built multiple habits, but because he'd shifted the foundational architecture from doing to being. He was no longer someone who tries to be consistent. He had become someone who simply continues. And when that shift happens, people look at you and think, that's not normal. And the truth is, it's not. because most people live in perpetual negotiation with themselves, and you've exited that reality entirely. The question is, are you ready to understand why your consistency dies after 2 weeks? It dies because you're treating it as behavior, something you do, an action you take, a streak you maintain. But behavior requires energy, and energy depletes, always. Somewhere around day 14, the energy cost becomes too high, and the structure collapses. Mushin doesn't solve this by giving you more energy. It solves it by removing energy from the equation entirely. When the practice becomes identity, there's no energy cost. You don't expend willpower to breathe. You don't budget discipline to keep your heart beating. The action occurs without requiring a decision. That's the ancient Japanese solution. Not better habits, not stronger willpower, but the elimination of separation between who you are and what you do. And here's what no one tells you. The transition is terrifying, because it requires killing the version of yourself who negotiates, who makes excuses, who waits for motivation. That person has to die, completely. Not metaphorically, actually die. Most people can't do it. They get to day 17, feel the collapse coming, and they choose to restart with a new system instead of crossing the threshold into non-negotiable existence. They'd rather keep trying than actually become. But if you're still watching this, you're different. You've already sensed that something deeper is broken, that all the habit tracking and streak counting and motivation videos are just sophisticated procrastination, avoiding the real shift. The real shift is this: stop trying to be consistent, start being continuous. Consistency is an achievement. Continuity is existence. Consistency can break. Continuity doesn't recognize the concept of breaking, because there's nothing to break. There's just continuation. Mushin won't make you a better person. It will make you a different person. Someone who doesn't understand why others find consistency hard. Someone who others look at and think something's wrong with them. And when you hear those words, you'll know you've finally exited the architecture of collapse. The system is simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. Tomorrow morning, you wake up and decide, this is who I am now, not who I'm trying to become, who I am, right now, already. And then you exist as that person, not for 21 days, not for 66 days, just continuously, until the question of whether to do the practice becomes as absurd as the question of whether to keep breathing. If this video changed your perspective on why your habits collapse, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss future content that will transform you. And tell me in the comments, what's the smallest practice you'll commit to for the next 48 hours without negotiation? Not a goal, not a streak, just uninterrupted existence. Remember, you don't need to stay consistent. You just need to stop choosing to stop. If you've watched this far, thank you very much for your attention. See you in the next video.